Hello? Kate Floss, citizen journalist, reporting live from Thailand, fighting for New Zealand, in exile for my own safety, actually. The people that seek to destroy our national identity that was created in 1840 by Her Majesty Queen Victoria and the paramount chiefs of the tribes of New Zealand that made an agreement, a covenant together, that our Anglo people and our native Aboriginal people, they used to call them, will build a nation together. We decided to build a nation together, and that nation is called New Zealand. And the first people that were in New Zealand were called the New Zealanders. The Aboriginals were called New Zealanders. And everybody else was called an Irishman or an Englishman or a German or a Frenchman. Everyone was known by their nationality. Nobody was known by their colour or their race. You were just, if you were born to the country, of parents born to the country, then that was who you were. You were one with the earth. And the people born to New Zealand were called New Zealanders. And the Anglo people held their names of their nations that they came from. Irishman, Englishman, Scotsman, German. And some of them came as young, as 12 years old, 10 years old, left in the streets of Auckland. And the only way that they could get food was to agree to go and build the roads and build the infrastructure that was needed. And for that, they were given a free meal 3 times a day, if they were very lucky. Many of these children died. And our people built a nation together. And now they're bringing in all these United Nations laws. And they want us to be, they brought in 2 million foreigners. And they now want you to either be a one people, or they want you to be part of the 370 million indigenous people, they call you. And they're writing constitutions as we speak to make all of these people equal with New Zealanders. When they have their own country, why do they get equal privileges in New Zealand and then they get equal privileges in another country when New Zealand people only get privileges in one country? And why do they have to destroy all our laws so that New Zealand can uphold all of their laws that are repugnant to our 1688 Bill of Rights? Our 1688 Bill of Rights is for the Protestant people to protect us against some of the religions around the world that have got decapitation laws, burning at the stake laws, many laws that are repugnant to the Protestant people. We have to stand as a nation of New Zealanders. You see, they don't call us New Zealanders anymore. They're calling us Kiwis. They call you Maori. They call you Kiwis. Anything that they can do to break down our New Zealand national identity, to break down our treaty, to destroy our treaty and the covenant that was made in 1840. Anything that they can do, they're trying to do it. We've got to stand together as New Zealanders. And you know what? I'm sorry, all you people that are new to New Zealand, this is not your fight. Because when you get sick of New Zealand and you decide that you don't like the laws that you're trying to force on our country, you decide that you can just up and go back to the country that you came from. The New Zealand people can't. And don't say that about the Anglo people. Because, you know, before they started doing all this, the first thing they did in 1983 was remove New Zealanders, all New Zealanders, of their rights of British citizenship. So Anglo people are not able to go back to Britain or Germany or Ireland or wherever it is, that none of them are able to, because of what was done in 1983. So do they think they have the right? That the third article of the treaty, what does the third article of the treaty say? Put that camera on me now. The third article of the treaty. The third article of the treaty, what does it say? It says in the well, let's go to the second article. In the second article of the treaty, it says the Majesty recognises the chiefs as the sole sovereigns thereof. They were the sovereigns. And why were they the sovereigns? Who are the sovereigns? If you're born to the parents of that country and you were born in that country, then you are a sovereign of that country. And at that time in 1840, only the New Zealanders were sovereigns of the country. The sovereigns changed. And in the third article of the treaty, it said that all the New Zealand natives would become subjects of Queen Victoria. And there was a huge celebration. They wanted to be subjects. They came under the protection of the 1688 Bill of Rights. And that third article was changed by, who knows, by both Anglo and New Zealand Maori chiefs. We think Ngāpuhi, we think. Do you think they had the right to change that? To take the 1688 Bill of Rights away from us and sign us up to the United Nations 1990 Bill of Rights? We have been deceived. The promise was made in 1840 that all the Anglo people and their descendants would be protected under the 1688 Bill of Rights forever. You can't take that away from us. Forever. And why do all these foreigners coming into New Zealand, why do they want that 1688 Bill of Rights removed? Why do they want the Treaty of Waitangi changed, altered, removed, changed into some kind of principles of something that was not even what was written in the treaty? Why do they want? Because one of the things in the 1688, it says that Protestants will have the right to arm themselves. What else? It says that religious leaders are not allowed to govern in our countries. Well, all their countries are governed by religious leaders, aren't they? So they need that Treaty of Waitangi gone. And what have they done? They've flooded our country with 2 million or more. 2.5 million foreigners have been flooded into New Zealand borders so that they can outvote the New Zealand Anglo and Maori people, outvote them and put all of their people in power. And they're writing a constitution as we speak. There's a constitution being written as we speak, where the Pacific Islanders have now demanded in the new constitution, they have decided, now remember that they've all got their own countries, they have decided that they should have a Pacific ward. Like they wanted to have, just like I said, they wanted to have the Maori wards. Now they want the Pacific wards. And they want to have special seats in Parliament, specifically put for Pacific people. Well, it's only a matter of time before they want a seat for the Muslim people. Then they want special seats for the Jewish people. Then they want special seats for the Catholic people. And under our 1688 Bill of Rights, do you know what? All of those things are illegal. And that's why they want to get rid of it. Because they want to have power in our parliament. Not only that, they have signed us up under the treaty that is not the treaty. They have signed a co-governance with the United Nations, a co-governance with the treaty and the United Nations to govern New Zealand under the 1990 Bill of Rights that is filled with, Section 19 is filled with hundreds of United Nations laws that you don't even know about. And so they're doing that with the treaty. Well, I know that these Maori leaders had to have a hand in it, because the Anglo government wouldn't have been allowed to do it. We know that the Maori leaders, we know what you've done. We're looking at everything that you've done and all the laws that you've changed, the change to the whakaputanga, the change to the Treaty of Waitangi, the removal of our constitutions. We know what you've done, and we know that you're now signing up in a co-governance to put all New Zealand people, and included, they've added Australia, so don't think you're safe Australia. They've slipped Australia in under New Zealand law to be governed by the United Nations rather than be governed by the British Empire. Under the British Empire, we had the 1688 Bill of Rights, which forbid people like the United Nations to govern over us. So we all have got to start using the word, I'm going to be going now, we all have got to start using the word New Zealanders. Stand together as New Zealanders. We're not going to stand together by race. We're not going to be standing together by our tribes. We're not going to be standing together by our race. We're going to stand together as New Zealanders. Wherever, whatever. Now, New Zealanders are people that are born to New Zealand. And if you're not born to New Zealand, well, that's just too bad. You don't get to have full rights and privileges in two countries. And the New Zealand government has decided that foreigners should have a right to vote on our constitution. And yet, if they're not happy with the constitution, they just pack up and go back. Now, if you go to any of their countries, you're not allowed to vote on their constitutions. And yet, they're all these ethnic communities, Pacifica communities, are all demanding that they have a right to vote on our constitution. And they've decided that, this is what they've decided, is that we know that we call Anglo people Pākehā. And the Pākehā specifically, it was never used in any documents actually, but it came to mean the Anglo people that were in New Zealand, born to New Zealand, that lived with the Maori tribes. They lived there and they lived the culture and they knew the culture. But now they've decided in this new constitution that all ethnic people, all people that come to New Zealand are going to be called Pākehā, is what they're trying to say. And that all those people will have equal rights. Well, you don't get equal rights. I'm sorry, but you don't get equal rights as the country. Because you shouldn't, because you can go, it's not equal rights because you have special privileges and rights in two countries. And New Zealand people only have special privileges and rights in one country. So I'm telling you, all of you New Zealand Maori and all of you New Zealand Anglo, and you can be New Zealand ethnic as well, as long as you're born to New Zealand of New Zealand parents. You're born to New Zealand of New Zealand parents. You have got to stand as New Zealanders. We are New Zealanders and we are a nation of New Zealand. Stop dividing up our nations by race. And we will not run our parliamentary systems by race. Our parliamentary systems must be run by people that are born to New Zealand. 50% of New Zealand Parliament is run by foreigners. that are not even born to New Zealand. We've got a Mexican in New Zealand Parliament that was in New Zealand less than 10 years. Less than 10 years, and he worked in the movie theatre. And he's in our Parliament. That was against the law in 2006. Helen Clark changed it. We've got an Eritrean who was in New Zealand less than 10 years. And now he's in our Parliament. God knows where he's come from. He was in the prison in the refugee camp. Even then he was in prison. Why was he in prison? We've got Iranians in our Parliament that came to New Zealand that were not even born to New Zealand. We must have a rule of New Zealanders. We need New Zealand-born people in New Zealand Parliament. Now, I've gone the wrong fucking way. Now, this is a standard law in every country around the world. Oh, I've gone the wrong way. Well, that one's going down. Is that one going up? All right, that one's going up. Well, I'll go around there. So anyway, that's enough that I'm going to say. Stand together as New Zealanders. Everybody start using the word, I am a New Zealander. I am a New Zealander born to New Zealand land. Start using that. We have to stand together and sort out what these freaks have done to us. So there.